Um, Good evening, everyone. Um, in tonight's session, we're going to look into Python for automation testers. So this is going to be different in the sense that there's no slide; it's just pure practical. And I'm going to explain concept as we go along. And please feel free to ask any question. Again, feel free to ask any question. If I'm doing something that you don't understand, let me know. And please talk. Don't just put it in the chat or raise your hand. I can't see your hands. I'm sharing my full screen. So I'm just going to create a new project, right? I'm just going to call a new folder. I'm just going to call it, okay, maybe then Python what they're about. And I'm going to open this folder. So you're going to open your folder and you're going to have a pop-up that draws the author of all the files in your parent folder projects. So this is very useful when you are sharing a system. But if you know it is your personal project, you can feel free to put trust. But if you are sharing the system, then you don't need to put just click on no, I do not trust the authors because you don't know what is in the file and you don't want malware to actually enter your system. So I'm going to click on yes because this is my personal system and I'm going to create a new file. But before we create this new file, we need to install some certain extensions. And one of the extensions is called Python. Now, this Python is actually made by Microsoft, so and support IntelliSense, meaning that it can tell you your types in your Python code, debugging, so you can debug linting, meaning that if you do something wrong, it's going to tell you formatting, refactoring, unit tests, and more. So once I click on install on this one, it's going to install this first tree for us. So as you can see, these first three have been installed. Now, so I'll be brought up with start development with Python. And to confirm that you have your Python extension, so once you click on your extension, I'm not going to play it. You should see Python, and you should have a new extension. This is for Python tests, right? Now, so this is our folder. So if you want to navigate your folder, this is your file explorer. Oh, sorry, your explorer. Then this is for extension. This is for testing. This is for debugging. This is for search and replace, and just for your explorer. Now I'm going to create a new Python project. So I already have a folder. So I'm just going to click on this. I'm just going to mark it. I'm going to create a new file now. I'm going to click on create a Python file. So this is the Python file. But I don't need this. I'm just going to create a new one here, and I'm going to call it main.py. So our file extension for Python is .py. That is what we have over here. So open and create a Python file. Make sure to save it as a .py file extension. So file extension is what is after the name of anything you're creating. So for instance, if we're working with C#, it's going to be .cs. So it's to tell the compiler, or rather maybe the interpreter, that this is what we're going to be currently working on. So that is the .py. So, and there are different extensions, but you don't need to memorize everything. Then the next one is select or create a Python environment. So now I'm going to do this next one, which is going to be create a Python environment. There are multiple ways to go about it. So this is one way. So if I click on create, as you can see, I'm going to see something like this. However, let's say this pop-up did not come out, right? Let me just escape. I'm just going to go to show and run command. And I'm going to search for Python. So I'm going to search for Python. So you click on Python, create environment. So you're going to come back to this VENV, just like how we have it over here. So you select VENV. Then I have two Python 12 and Python 9. So I'm just going to click on this Python 12. So I told you anything above 12, 3.12 were fine. So, and I believe that we have 3.13 and above installed, or 3.14 installed. I'm going to click on this Python 3.12. So now it's creating my virtual environment. And this is it. So but you may not be able to see this as the environment properly. So I'm going to install another extension called material icon theme. So this is just to give us a very good looking icon. So look at how the icon was before. Then if I install it and I set my icon theme to material icon, as you can see, it has changed a little bit. So I hope this is better. So it has changed a little bit. I'm going to close it. So the next one is for us to run and debug our Python file. So I'm just going to do a very simple statement, which is print. So print is used when we want to, like it says, print the value to a string or to system.s standard output by default. So in a nutshell, it means that if we want to display to the console, we should use the print keyword. And I'll also say name. So we'll talk about printing later. And there's going to be like a run button. So I can run the Python file. I'll do Python in our terminal. Sorry. So as you can see, VENV. So make sure, once you click on it, make sure that your VENV is actually activated. So let's say I don't have it activated and I want to bring out my terminal. I'm going to come to terminal, click on new terminal. The VENV is not yet activated. So, but now it's already activated. So I can just do Python main.py. Then I have my name because I am printing name. And if I change this to Ola and I save it and I run it, I'm going to have Ola in the console. So that's just ways to go about it. Or easy, you can just run our Python file and have Ola. So ignore all this that you are saying here. What we should focus more on is this Ola side of things. Right. So my camera. Now, I want to enable auto save. So I'm going to come to my settings. I'll go to settings again. Then I've increased my font size. So that's why my font size is big. And I clicked on format on save. So, and this is very important. If I do, and I do save. So as you can see, there's red. So I can actually quick fix and delete the red and save it. So then after this format on save, I have on focus change. So focus change means once I've moved my cursor maybe from this welcome screen to this means, then it's going to format on save automatically. Then I can actually choose a default formatter, but I can change this one. But I don't have a formatter installed. That's why I didn't pick anyone. So that is going to be it about the setup part of things. So just make sure that we actually install our extension. So the first one, or what we really need, is actually the Python. So once you search for Python, make sure you install it and make sure everything you are getting is actually from Microsoft. All the Python you've installed, make sure they are from Microsoft. And you have this material icon theme, which is just to get a very fancy icon, right? So as you can see, this is our icon. Look at everything. If I'm to disable this material UI theme, I'm not going to even differentiate everything. You won't be able to differentiate bin from include. You won't be able to differentiate this .𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐍𝐄𝐓 file, right? Okay. Now I'm going to start with printing. So like I said, print this print keyword. So I'm going to start with a comment. So in programming, we have a concept called a comment. So a comment is a code that we don't want it to be executed, and it's used for explaining. So what do I mean? So if I write my name now, Ola, it is red. However, I just want to write Ola wrote this code. But as you can see, everything is red because it feels that the statements must be separated by a new line or semicolon. So it feels that this is the actual Python statement. So if I don't want to make it execute, or I don't want the compiler or the interpreter to actually complain about it, right, I'm going to comment it out. So, and in Python or in almost all languages or IDE, the shortest way to actually comment out your code is by typing control and the forward slash. So once I do control and my forward slash, I'm going to have a hash. But if I'm not working with, if I don't know the command, I could just put a hash symbol in front of it, and I have commented. As you can see, our comment is green. So the comment is green. And in some languages like C Sharp, you have a double forward slash. But in Python, the double forward slash is actually for something different, which is for division, which we're going to talk about later on tonight. So when you make use of the hash symbol, right, or the pound symbol anyway, depending on who called it. So hash or pound symbol to write our comment. And this is not going to get executed. So if I'm to run my code, as you can see, nothing get executed because I didn't get any print statements. So I can do Python main.py and nothing get executed. So this is our comment. However, if I don't have it and I try to run it, I'm going to get a error message. So I'm going to use Python main.py to run it again because the name of our file is main.py. Then I'm going to run it. As you can see, I have error, which is the first one is indentation error. So we're going to talk about error tonight. Unexpected indent. But it says Ola wrote this code. But meanwhile, this is an error. As you can see, it is red. It shows that this action is an error. It resulted to an error. It failed and it exited. So I'm just going to get my terminal and I'm going to put it back as it is. So if I run it again, I got nothing. So that means the error is, that means there is no error. Now, the next one is print. So print is used, the print function is actually used when we want to display on the terminal. So we can print almost anything in Python, right? So, and to print in Python, we use the print keyword and we put anything we want to print inside the brackets, inside this bracket where my cursor is currently beeping at. So we use it to display an output to the user or even to ourselves. Maybe we want to confirm maybe we want to confirm a value and we can't see the value. So we need to print it out. So that's one reason why we use print. And we can actually use a single quotation or a double quotation in Python. It doesn't really matter. But majority of the time, you see this double quotation in some code base. And sometimes you see a single quotation in some code base. So, and you can have a linter that actually converts single quotation to double quotation in Python. So we'll talk about why we have double quotation and single quotation later on. So if I run my code, Python main.py, then I have Ola because I printed out Ola to the terminal. And the next one is root because I printed root to the terminal. All right, so that is the two, Ola and root. And Ola is with single quotation, root is with double quotation. So you may be wondering what happened if I don't put Ola in double quotation. So it's going to tell you that Ola is not defined. And if I run this error, let me remove this root. So I'm going to see Ola, then I'm going to see an error later on. So as you can see, this is the error. So Ola got printed out, but it told you, let me just change it to Olu. So as you can see, Ola got printed out. Then we have Olu telling that, okay, there's an error. We have a name error. Remember, the first one was indentation error. Now we have a name error. So we're going to understand error later on. So name Olu is not defined. So that, as what you can see, is going to tell you actually, like, okay, it's going to tell you the error even before you get the error. So that's the beauty of installing this extension. Right, so delete it, then run it. Now that is printing in action. So we're going to move on to the next part, which is a variable. So the next part is going to be a variable. we're going to talk about variables in Python. So a variable is a container for storing objects, or it can be letters, or it can be any value. So what I mean by that is, if we want to store one, if we want to store the value 1, 2, 3 in a variable, we want to store it somewhere in the memory so that we can reuse it. Maybe I want to say I want to print 1, 2, 3, right? If I want to print this one, I already have it here and already have it here. So there's a concept in programming called do not repeat yourself. And or rather, we're going to abstract it so that maybe I want to print it 100 times. I want to print it like 100 times now. But I keep writing the same 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 multiple times. So one way to achieve the same result is actually like using a variable. I could just assign this to a variable. I say A equals to this, and this is my variable. So the variable is an A, and it's a tuple. So we're going to talk about tuple later on. Or I can also say my A equals to 1. And variable in Python can store anything. So meaning it can store string, it can store number, it can store Boolean value. So let's talk about data types now. So this is a variable. So a variable is a container that can store any value in Python. Now the next one is data types. What is a data type? A data type, like I said, is just the type of the variable, or rather the type of the variable you are storing in Python. And this is applicable to majority of the program language. And in Python, we have 4 main type of primitive data type. The first one is a string. So a string is a sequence of character. So a sequence can mean, let me just put it, a sequence, for instance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So in mathematics, this is a sequence. Similar thing happens in a string. So I can put my name as Ola. So Ola is a sequence because 0 is a alphabet, L is the alphabet, so A is an alphabet, just like how 1, 2, 3, 4 is is a number. So these are sequence of characters. So we have O as one character, L as a single character, A as a single character, and they are all together in the same string, right? So this is as you can see, is a literal. And I can check the type. So I can check the type of name. So this is going to give me the type of name. So as you can see, our class is called str, which means it is a string. So the name is a string in our name, which is the sequence of character, is actually a string. So this is the first data type. So, and this is used to store almost everything. So we have, it can be Ola, and it can also be double quotation. So our string can also be double quotation. Our string can also be double quotation. It can be single quotation. Like I said, you're going to see everything. You're going to see the two. In fact, you're going to see mixture of the two almost everywhere. But you just need to understand that they are basically saying the same thing. And if I run this command again, and let me just say into as you can see, it is still of class string and there is no error. We have the name. The next data type we have, so this is str, which is for string. So short form for string. The next one we have is a number. So this one, I'm just going to delete this one. The next one we have is a number. Now, the number, we have 2 types of number. So the first one is a whole number, and the second one is a floating point number. Now, there's some numbers that they cannot be decimal. For instance, our age, the year, our date of birth, that cannot be decimal, right? Because you can't have someone that's going to be 1.5 years old. Like once the baby start counting 1 years and above, or 2 years and above, we stop putting 1 month, 2 years and 1 month. We don't put 2.5 years anymore. We just say 2 years. Oh, it's going to be 3 years. It's going to be 4 years. Likewise, our age are going to be 50 years, are going to be 40 years. So we don't put a decimal point when we're talking about age, when we're talking about year. Or generally, if we're counting, and if I put my cursor here, you're going to see, oh, if I print the type of age, right, we're going to see, we're going to have something like an integer. So integer is for whole number. So these are number that you can actually count with your hand. Remember, you can't count 1.5 with your hand, right? But some people still do it, but generally you just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 with your hands or with your fingers. And I'm going to save it and I'm going to print it to the console. As you can see, we have the class of int. So we're going to talk about classes later on. But for right now, you have the class of int. So, and it deals with whole number. However, sometimes that we want to deal with decimal number. For instance, the prices of the goods we bought, right? While dealing with the e-commerce website, and we want the prices to count. So how do we want the prices to count without losing value? Because if I call it for you £10.50 and you give me £10, my business is short. But if you give me £11, you are paying more than what you should be expected, which is actually wrong, right? So how do we get it to be right? We can't use whole number because whole number cannot take in decimal. So what we can use is actually a data type called a float, right? So I'm going to use a float to that, and I can just call it price equals to maybe 10.1, right? So this 10.1 is a float. So I print the type of price, right? Remember, this is the string, this is the int. So, and this should resolve to a float. You can see the first one, which is the name, is a string. The next one is an integer. And sorry about that. Float. Now, the next data type we have is a Boolean. So the Boolean is just, we only have two values. And, sorry.
Sorry, I think you should calm down and maybe have some water, then you continue. Sorry.
I'm finishing very I'm fine now. Sorry. I just having course already. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you very much. I'm fine. Yeah, so the next one we have is a Boolean. Now, our Boolean does store two values, which is true and false. So, and why do we need a Boolean? Sometimes that we just want to do a simple operation. We don't want to store a number, neither do we want to store a string. We just want true or false. So we could actually represent it with a name, but in memory, this actually takes more in memory than a Boolean. What do I mean by that? So if I say is eligible, so this eligible is actually a Boolean. this series of to a Boolean. Well, sometimes you can see it as bool, sometimes you can see it as Boolean. And it stores true or false. So as you can see it as bool or Boolean. And if I do false and I run it again, it's also a type of Boolean. So basically, this is what we'll be working with before we get to classes and we can create our custom types of. And everything we're going to use as a tester is actually built on top of this. So the rest, any other type, data type is actually a combination of this. For instance, we can have a dictionary, but we're not going to talk about dictionary now. You can say user. Like I print user, and I mean print out the type of user. So this is another data type, but this is complex. As you can see, we are trying to combine the name, which is please, the age, which is the number 1, and eligible, which is a Boolean. And this is going to be a type of dict. So this is complex type. I'm going to talk about that later on. So as you can see, the type is a dict. So it's a combination of multiple data type together. So that is it with data type. Now, I'm just going to delete everything. We're going to focus on string for now. Right, then we're going to come back to the rest later on. So now, back to the strings, because I'll say string is one of the most important parts, even more important than any other one I'm going to do. But, so what if, let me change the name back to Ola. Now, what if I want to print like a statement? So let's say I want to print a statement like this, and this our name is actually changing. What can I do? So if I print Ola is a boy now, yes. So I'm printing Ola is a boy because of this is a string. So remember, I can actually replace, because this is a string, our storing a string here, and this is also a string. I can actually replace the value of name to be here, right? Because we're going to print out Ola. So I'm replacing the value, which is so this value can actually replace here, because initially what was there was a double quotation. So this value doesn't really matter. What really matters is what I'm passing here. And if I copy this one and I also update it here, and I put it as name, and I run the same sentence again, just let it console, I'm actually going to see Ola is a boy, which is my name, because I stored it in a variable. Now, however, let me just change it back to Ola is a boy. And let me just change this to Ola. What if I have Olu here and I want to run this, but I want Olu to be displayed rather than Ola? So there's a concept in Python called an F string. So a F string is actually used when we want to concatenate strings together. The concatenation means if you want to add strings together. So if I want to add on the same line, you can actually concatenate it. I can actually use the plus keyboard. And rather than passing Ola here, I can pass in name. As you can see, the syntax has changed a little bit. and it's telling that we have Olu here. So if I run it, rather than me seeing Ola is a boy every time, I'm going to see Olu is a boy. And if I change it to Dapo, I'm going to see Dapo is a boy, right? Because this variable can change. It's not static anymore. Remember, this is one reason why we use a variable, because we want to store values that can be changing. And we don't want to repeat ourselves, because I can actually have a variable that comes in and sprints, and another one that does something else again. But the concept is, when it comes to a variable, you can replace a string here and any other variable type. So what I mean by that, if I do h equals to 10, if I'm going to remove this for the meantime now, I'm going to print out age. So we should see 10 on the console, because we can print a variable here. We can also print a string, right? But if we want to combine both of them together, the easiest way for us to do that is by using the f string. So this is the easiest way for us to do it together. And once we've done when we put f, any variable we want to put, that we want to assign and concatenate, we're going to put it in a curly bracket. So this is a curly bracket. And maybe I want to also add age, and it is age years old, right? Because as you can see, this read as a sentence. The name Dapo is a boy and is 10 years old, right? So if I run this, this is what we should see on the console. So this is the concept of f string. So can we do string addition? Yes, we can do string addition. So I can say results equals to name plus name plus hello. And if I print out my results, sorry, if I print out my results, so I should see name, which is Dakpo plus. I'm going to say Dakpo hello without any space. So as you can see, this is Dakpo hello. There is no space. So the sweet part with this one, but I can actually create a space. I can actually do space, then do plus again, then add my space. So this is gonna give us that box space hello. Like I said, anything when it comes to string, we're just working with a sequence. So meaning that in our string, we're going to count Dapo as one. This space is also going to be counted as a string in Python. So this space, despite it looks empty in Python, is actually counted as a string. So always remember that. So when you're working with string, as long as it is within the double quotation, it is actually counted. So once I print my result now, then you see Dapo hello. So always remember that string, anything is within double quotation, and to prove that, I'm just going to do it. I put a space, and then we put multiple space now. Like I say, type of print the type of name. So once I print the type of name, you should see string. As you can see, anything. Just remember, string is anything within a double quotation, and our spaces actually counts when it comes to string. Our spaces actually counts. So always know that. So that's why we have different string function. Like we can trim, we can actually capitalize, do some a lot of, we can do formatting, we can do some a lot of as you can see, there's this space, and this is string method. So I'm going to talk about string method later on, and function. As you can see, this is turned in boolean. Like I said, everything about Python is actually built on top of the data type we talked about, which is the string, the integer, the float, and the boolean. Now, next part is accepting user inputs. And in Python, to accept user inputs, we use the keyword called input. And that is it. This is going to return a string. So we're going to talk about function later on, but this returns a string. So anytime you see arrow, it means that it's going to return something. And that is a string. So it reads a string from the standard input. The training new line is stripped. The prompt string is given. It's printed out to the it's printed out to the standard output without a training line before the reading input. So it means that it's going to print this, right? It's going to print this to the console and it's going to accept our value. And once we click on enter, which is the training space, then it's going to store the value in memory. But because we can't use the value, so if I run this command now, it's just going to, what is your name? That's it. So we're not saving the value anyway. And once this has run and we did not save the result of this input, which is the string, we are not going to be able to use it elsewhere. So this is one reason why we also make it of a variable. So I'm not going to give it a variable name called input. As you can see, this our input is going to get a string. But the string is not known until compile time. Then I'm going to print out my name. I'm going to use the F string. So rather than doing plus, I say your name is name. So one of I'm going to run this now. So what is your name? I'm going to put Ola. So your name is Ola. So that is how we accept user input. Now you won't be accepting user input during automation. So let me make that clear. However, if you are going to be working with interview question, you're probably going to get some, they're going to ask you to actually get user input. So how do we get the user input? Because in interview, you just ask you a random question, even if you're not going to use it in your workplace. So they're going to ask him. So that's why I'm bringing it up now. So you're not going to use it throughout your whole um, web testing based on my knowledge, right? However, you can be asked in interview question, interview that, oh, how do you accept user input? So this is one way you accept a user input, right? So the next part is, what if we have another user input? We call it recursive input. What is, or let me use rather than what you, when were you born? Now, remember, when were you born is a string. It's going to be a string, right? Because if in case you forget, just print the type of age. So this age is when you were born, but this is going to return a string. However, because we want to do minus, we want to minus it from, so we want to do 2026 minus this. This is going to throw an error, right? Because this type is a string. Remember, when it comes to string, we can only do addition in string. And once we do addition, it's called concatenation. So we're adding two strings together. But if we're going to do minus, because 2026 minus 10 in string, or minus 2001 in string, is going to give you an error. We can never minus a string. So I'm going to, before I use this, before I make it through an error, I'm just going to show you the type again. Your name is Ola. Now, let me put the minus. So, when were you born? I was born in 2009. Then, as you can see, also unsupported operand type. So for minus int and string. So you can't minus, you can't do subtraction of the integer and the string, but you can do the addition. So remember that. So and the addition is called concatenation. So just write it here. String. So it's called concatenation. Remember that string addition is called concatenation. So, but we can't do the we can't minus a string. So let me just I hope this makes sense. Now, how do we make this become an integer? So this is the next concept we're about to learn now, right? And it's called casting. So, now, so casting is the process of converting from one data type to the other. So this is casting. So I'm not going to copy this casting, then I will delete everything. So the casting is the process of converting from one data type to the other. Now, and this is very useful if we don't know the type initially, or the initial type is a string, because majority of the time when we are extracting value from the web, we get it as a string. Maybe we want to do a certain assertion on our web page. For instance, now we want to ensure that the checkout value and the total value is right, and we have a list of what item that we've put in our carts, and we have the total value shown up as 100. So we want to use Python, or we want to use automation to calculate, to extract each value. Maybe the top is £15.20. The next item is, or the cap you bought is £10.50. So we want to use Python to extract it, convert it to a particular type, maybe an integer or a float. In our case, it's going to be a float because we're working with decimal. Then after we've converted it to a float, sum it up, then confirm if the two value actually match before we call it a day, or before we end our assertion. So that is why we're going to be using casting in automation. So now, and to cast is very, very simple. So back to the inputs and the 2026 and my birthday date anyway. So H equals input now. Remember, and we want to get the age. We are receiving the year of birth from the user. What we could do is to cast is just to use the call the int. So we want to convert it to integer. Remember, I said year cannot be a float. The question is, why should the year be a float? Our year is in digits, full form digits, not a float. If we're in 2025 August, or in 2025, if we're in 2025 December, or in 2025, if we're in the 2025 January, we're still in 2025. You don't want in 2025.1, 2025.2, 2025.12, then 2026 again. It doesn't work that way, right? So we're going to convert, and this is a very easy way to convert. And we can just say print before I store my age type of. So remember, the type of is to get the exact data type. So you return the exact data type of age, and I am going to run it, and I'm going to give it as my year of birth is 2029, 2009. Then I have integer because I actually converted it to integer. Now let's say I converted it to float, right? So I converted to floats. So I'm going to have a float. So I was going to say conversion is easy, right? But what happens if I run it and I put full stop? Remember, full stop, our full stop, what's going to happen? I have an error because full stop is actually a string. But in Mondrable, float should actually accept 0.00. Yeah, it actually should actually accept 0.00. But that's if I actually pass in 0. Or if I do 0. Sorry, if I run it again and do 0.0, it's fine. But just putting full stop shows it's a string. So don't get it wrong, right? So even if it's a float, it can take 0.00, right? It can take 0. However, it can't just take full stop on 0 because full stop actually denotes it's a string. And we want to convert a string to a float. However, that string that we're trying to convert is not actually feasible in the number system. So the floats and the integer are actually working with the number system. So our number system is 0, comma. So we have 0, comma, 0.1, comma, 0.2, comma, 1, comma, 2, comma, 3, comma, 4.5, like that. So we have different numbers. So that is the number system, and our float deals with the decimal. However, our float can also take in a whole number. So we'll talk about that one later. So back to my integer. Now, I've converted this to an integer, then I can now subtract 2026 from it. Now, if I subtract it and I print out my age, then this should give me our age. 2026 is today's year, and I'm receiving our year from the user inputs. So we should be able to get the user age based on the year. Now, what is our birthday? 2009. So if you are born in 2009, you are 17 years old. All right. So if you are born in 2009, then you're 17 years old. Okay, so I hope that make a little bit of sense, right? And in case it doesn't, please ask your question. Okay. This is how we convert from one data type to the other. So we use inputs to receive the user value, and we can't do subtraction with an integer and a string together, or a float and a string together. We're actually going to have issues. Right? Even string minus string doesn't make sense, right? So we're not going to have, but I don't think all program language actually like eat you for that. If you do string minus string in some languages, it's still going to work, but you're going to get something different. We've talked about comments, we talked about prints, we've talked about variables, we talked about data type. Now, the next part is let's go back to strings again. Now, and this string, like I said, is the most powerful side of Python. Like once you understand string, you are good to go. So now, before I forget, so the function is just a global function, and a method is a function in a class. So we'll talk about function in details later on. So now and this is very useful when we want to do transformation. So say name equals to hello. My name is Ola. Right. So my name is Ola. Now I can do some string manipulation. You know, I want to do some string manipulation. So I'm going to just call the print method, and I'll do name dot to upper. So now this uppercase it actually returns a copy and makes it uppercase. So remember, look at how we are starting. We start with only one uppercase, one lowercase, and the next one is the lowercase. And if I run it, if it's focused on the terminal, we're going to see everything as OLA, everything in capital. And similarly, if I change this to lower, right, this O that's capital is actually going to come to lower. But remember, this is to upper, this is to lower. So this is string manipulation in action. And this is very important if you want to strip out. So now let's talk about find and replace. So for instance, now we got a user input. We have, let me say, rubbish user input. We have space. After that space, we have dollar sign. So let me just use, so let me use name instead. So let me use price. So let's say we got from our automation data, we got price. I have space, I have dollar sign, right? This is our price. And then let's use pound sign. You have space again. Our price is 10.55. Then maybe we have hash symbol, maybe due to some unknown error, maybe we took it loss. So, but this is our price that we're getting. So we can't just use this price like that. We can't work with this price. So how do we work with it? Now, this is why these strings function are very, very important. And please, I want you to listen carefully because you may need to extract value from the web and need to do some data manipulation. And this is why we use string function. Remember, this is a string. It has a double quotation. So let's break it step by step on how we're going to deal with the string manipulation. Now, I'm not going to say I'm just going to give it different name. I'm going to be creating a variable step by step. So the first step is, if we look at it, is for us to remove the trailing, the beginning and trailing white space up until this plus. Now, I'm not going to say remove white space equals to price. Just comment it out and say first step. Okay, so this is our first step. So how do we remove? So there's a code. So if we look at it, so this capitalizes to change to capital letter, just like we have upper. So and we have different, we have count. So this returns number of string. We have find, we have index, we have is alphanumeric, is lowercase, and is anytime you see is just nice return a boolean. Then we have else strip. So else strip means we should remove the let me use the else strip first. So we're going to return it from we're going to remove the leading white space. So this is the leading white space. So if I print this one, if I print the removed white space, now, so I've already removed the white space from the beginning, but I still have the remaining one in the ending, right? So similarly, if I do um R strip, which means the right strip, right? I'm going to stop at plus. I know it's hard to say right now, but that is what it does. So I'm going to, but as you can see, look at here, my left space still exists, and that is why it looks as if like it's moved a little bit because here is a white space. But remember, here we don't have white space, and we have white space here, and this one we don't have any white space. We don't have any white space again, so we can just quickly strip it off, right? Because this strip is going to return. We're going to return. We're going to remove the first and the last character. Sorry, we're going to return the. We're going to remove the first white space and the last white space. So this is the first transformation that we need to do. So we've done that already. As you can see, look as if we are starting from the front again. Now, something about string is that we can actually keep concatenating, right? So we can keep adding a method because this return a new string. So that new string, we not put the full stop again. We can actually keep doing some string method again, but I won't do that so that you see how I can manipulate my strings. So I've removed the first, I removed the white space or the spaces. So this is called white space in programming. And the next step is for me to remove my pound symbol. So also say next step. Say remove underscore our equals to, sorry, let me just call it hash equals to. Now there's a method. I'm going to use this remove white space because this returns a new string, right? This returns a new string, so and our new string is stored here. Remove white space dot. There's something they call replace. We have the replace method. So it's going to look for a old string. We're going to return a new string. So I'm going to use the first one, and that's two variation of it. So the first one is return a index. So you can use the index. We'll talk about index later on. But so what do we want to replace now? We want to replace the hash symbol, and we want to replace it with a single, with nothing. So if I put space, I'm going to replace it with a space. But if I just leave it the way it is, then I am replacing it. So if I print out my remove hash, let's see what's going to happen. As you can see, we've removed hash from there. However, in the process of removing hash, because of there's still one space there again, right? But we can focus on it later on. As you can see, there's still one space, but we've removed our hash symbol. And you can see it removed all the hash. So some people can say, oh, what happens if it doesn't remove the hash? Then we can actually put another hash. Remember, the hash actually together, and since they are next together, writing it this way, writing the double hash, it still works. So as you can see, but removing one it makes more sense because it's more readable, and we can actually have hash here. Let's say we have hash here now. If I use the double hash, it won't work because we don't have, this is not a double hash symbol. So you can see. But if I just use the single hash, it's going to replace hash in these three places. So that's just it. So that's just the difference. Now, so we remove the hash, and now so we have this, and we have the plus. So let us remove other symbol. So let us call the third step.
Oh, sorry, I have a question.
Yes, please go on.
This hash, normally hash is for commenting. Please, I'd like to know the purpose the hash is serving in this white space concept here.
Now, the thing is not really serving any meaningful purpose. In fact, that is where we are trying to remove it, because you can get a user data. So what I mean by that, let me just go to my browser. So let me just go to maybe Amazon. So let's say I want to extract data from our website, and I just come by anything from Amazon. Let's say I want to get an AirPod, right? I want to get an AirPod, and I try to extract our value, and mistakenly, now let me inspect this part. I'm going to learn about this later on in automation. And I mistakenly take everything that is here now, which is the symbol E. So let's say I mistakenly take everything that I don't need. This 00 is actually redundant. This full stop is redundant. This 3.9 is redundant. This is redundant also, because when we want to make our total calculation, we don't need 139. Then what else again? We can have this 18%. Let me just inspect this 18%. So I can have this minus 18%. It's also redundant, right? But the only thing we actually need is this 139. This is just what we need, because anytime we want to calculate our value, we don't need additional symbol. We just need the exact value. So in some cases, you may actually extract your value. It's not that you didn't extract it though, but you may end up adding additional symbol that you don't need. And in that case, you need to clean up your values. And one way you can do it is by using string manipulation. So it's not that you didn't get it well, but because of maybe the way they do their websites, you can't actually get the precise value. Then you have to end up doing some string manipulation. In fact, that's why you need to learn string manipulation as you're extracting values. So let me see if I add to baskets. And then this. If I go to baskets, yeah, go to baskets. So I have these two values. Now, if I look at this one, I have it as 2.49 pound, but I don't need the pound symbol, right? It's actually redundant. I know I'm calculating in pound. And similarly, if I come here, I have additional value. I have RSP, which I don't need. I also have 139. I also have this. It can be that the way we did our selector, we may be able to take all these ones at once, right? Which is good, but this is not really what we need. Then we now need to start calculating, or we can even want to check if 80% off of 169 actually equals to 139. That is another one again, right? So we can create a method for that and actually do our string manipulation, then calculate it. Then if it is true, then pass it. So it's just that in a nutshell, we can actually collect our value and we end up having unnecessary value that we don't need. So that is why we actually need to learn string manipulation. And like I said, it is not serving anything. Yes, you're right. It's actually used for comments, but anytime anything is inside this double quotation, like the compiler actually sees it as a string. It doesn't see it as a comment anymore because the first statement is actually within a double quotation mark. However, if it is before, then that is how it becomes a comment, or after. Let's say it is after. Then anything that comes after here now, it becomes a comment. But if it's within double quotation, then it is a string. Oh, that makes sense a little bit. Like,
Yes, yes, thank you.
mm. Now let's remove additional values, which is the pound symbol and the plus sign. So step remove um remove additional symbol. So I can say dot replace. I'm trying to replace. So what do I want to replace? I want to replace. First one I want to replace is my pound sign. So and the next one is I want to also replace um, what's wrong? Oh, oh, sorry. I need to replace it with something. So I want to replace it with a simple empty quotation. Make sure we use the plus. Like I said, it can also be double quotation. Please don't get me wrong. So you can say the mixture of both, but it's better to stick with one. Anytime I use replace, I tend to use single quotation most majority of the time because we may want to replace double quotation. So that's why. So now that
Anytime we use the double quotation, does the system recognizes it as a string?
yes, both
Okay,
single and both double,
okay.
it's sees it as a string. So rather than putting single quotation, you can actually change it to double quotation, and it's going to work fine, right? But I just like it. Like I just like to use single quotation here because it is more readable. Remember, this looks like 4-1, but just putting a single quotation here makes this very easy to read. It's just my own preference, right? So you can say, oh, you know what, I want to use double quotation for everything. As long as you are writing it correctly, then and the compiler understands what you are doing, or the interpreter understands what you are doing, then that's fine. So remove symbol. So I'm going to print this one out. We should see just 10.33 with some what's the name, so with some strings at the ending or some trailing lines at the ending. And when I print it, as you can see, we have 10.33, but this is still a string. So if I try to if I try to convert it to an integer, sorry, to a float, let's see what happens. You can see final price custom float of removed symbol. And I can print out that's because we've removed it. Once converted to float, right? We're going to give the variable name called final price. Then we're going to call it final price. I'm going to print it to the console. We have our value. It seems that the float actually stripped the double quotation for us. But in some languages, you may not get that. So it's just better for you to learn how to. It's better for you to learn how to actually manipulate it yourself. So you can actually strip possible. The float method actually does that. It's actually strip. Let me see. Let me see if I have a strip. Mm, ah, Never mind. Then, yeah, it actually does stripping. So one of the methods actually is going to help you to strip your method. So it does stripping for you. That's why the stripping is actually here. It does the stripping for you anyway. So, but in some languages, it may not strip for you. So, but Python is actually very good at it strips for us. So that is how we get our, and we can now maybe multiply by 10. We can now do some addition. You can create 10. We should have only those times by 100. So we can have 10.33. Then if I run it, we can have 10.3. Sorry, 1033. But let's say I haven't converted it to floats and I just try to run it. What do I see? I see 10.33 times 100. Now, I'm going to come back to string behavior. So the thing with, assuming I try to minus it or negate it now, this is when I'm going to have an issue, right? I can't minus, or if I try to divide, then I'm going to have issue. But multiplication in string means you want it to appear 100 times. So let's say I want it to appear 5 times. Now I'm going to come 10.3, 10.3, 10.3, 10.3, 10.3, exactly 5 times. And the spaces are actually included. So that's why you're seeing some built-in spaces in here. So that is something about string that you will never get in other programming language. So for best practice, make sure that you know the data type before you do any calculation. Because next we're going to talk about arithmetic operation in Python. So because we may end up having unknown, like, what's going on now? This is 10.3, 10.3, 10.3. Meanwhile, I just wanted it to actually be 10.3 times 10.33 times 5. But you don't know that you are using a string. So it can help you to tell that, oh, you know what, you're using a literal string, but you may not even get the suggestion actually. But just know this, anytime you are getting unexpected error, one way you can actually go about it is to look at your type of, am I using the right type? And if you find that maybe you're actually using difficulty, you can actually just look into maybe your error message or maybe some pop-up. Okay, so remember, multiplication makes you repeat the value in Python. So let me just write it. It makes the value repeats. So if you have 5, it's going to repeat 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you have 100, it's going to repeat it 100 times. So that's as for addition, you're going to just join the 5 and you are going to have 10.335 rather than 15.33. So make sure that you convert your type and so that it can work with things very easily. So I hope this make a little bit of sense. And the other string method that we can use. So the other string method we can use for instance, we can say name dot, maybe we can do find. So I can actually find if uh if A is there and it returns a boolean. So it returns the int of the index. So, so now we're going to talk about index a little bit and we'll come back to talk about it when we talk about list. So but now the way it works is O is mapped as 0, comma, L is mapped as 1, A is mapped as 2 in. This is how it works in the list. So I'm going to change this so it shouldn't be confused. I'll change it to play or P. So P is mapped as 0, A is mapped as 1, Y is mapped as 0 because in computer, integer, or sorry, counting start from 0, not 1. That is why. So this is going to be, this A is going to be, is going to fall as 1 rather than 2. So because I'm going to look at it, this is index 0, index 1, index 2. I didn't print it out. But you can see it's resolved to 1. So remember in indexing, we start from 0. This is 1. So this is P is 0, A is 1, Y is 2. So now the find actually return the index. And if we can't find it, maybe I use Z, it's going to return -1. So as you can see, it's going to return -1 if it's present. If it's not present, but if it's present, it's going to give you the exact position of it. 0. So our capital letter P is 0. So remember, it is case sensitive. P doesn't equal to capital letter P, right? Small p does not equal to capital letter P. It's actually case sensitive. So, okay, so that is, we're going to talk about, so we're going to talk about slicing now. That is indexing in a nutshell. So indexing means we're starting from 0, 1, 2. Our counts actually start from 0. So we want slicing. Now that we've learned a little bit about indexing, now slicing is just square brackets, then I'll start from 0. So what is index of 0? So index of 0 is P now. So index of 0 is P, so we should get P. So we should get the capital letter P because we want to find the index of 0. Right. Similarly, if I do index of 1, if I print out the index of 1, so A, our index of 1 is A because of A is actually mapped to 1. Same with index of 2. Index of 2 is going to resolve to Y because, so anytime you see the square bracket location, it means that you want to get the particular value of the index of whatsoever you are looking for. And if I do index of 9, remember we have 0, 1, 2. 9 is mapping to nothing. So let us see what we're going to get. We're going to have an error, which is index error. So string index out of range. We only have 3 strings, that is from 0 to 2. And I'm trying to look for 9. It's like going to Amazon and expecting Amazon to sell you a car. So it's going to tell you that we don't have a car. So that is what it's just trying to tell you in the string index out of range, right? So they don't sell or it doesn't have this particular index because its index is not mapping to anything. But if I have something longer, and we can map it, since P map to 0, A map to 1, Y map to 2, then I is going to map to 3. Similarly, N is also going to map to 4. G is going to map to 5. Remember, I told you space actually counts in Python. So I'm not going to use this. I'm not going to leave space for it. Then space map to 6, right? Then M map to, let me put the comma. M map to 7. E map to 8. So we don't still have 9. So we're still going to have an error. But if I change this to 7, right, and I run it, I'm going to have M because our M actually maps to 7. So thus it's very easy to grab, right? As long as you just have it in your back of your mind that you are going to start from 0 when it comes to indexing. So with the help of indexing, so this is called slicing. So I want to take part of the string, and the part I want to take is just a particular one, which is the index of 7. And the index of 7 is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So remember, space count, that is M. So we want to take M, and we're going to print M to the console. Now, what happens if I just want to get paying alone? So remember, our index start from 0. So if I want to get to a particular range, maybe I want to get to pay alone, I'll start with 0, 1, 2, then 3. Why 3 is because of, so if me using 3 is because of I is not going to be included. So this third value or third index is not inclusive. So anytime you see a colon, it means that you want to index a particular range. So for instance, you want to index from P, A, Y. So 0, 1, 1, 2. So meaning that we are going to have a string index of from 0. We are going to have name of 0 plus name of 1 plus name of 2, right? So this is what we're going to have. The tree is not inclusive. So if I print out results, right? So our name should give us P-A-Y. So this is what we should have. So P-A-Y. Remember, this is slicing. It's like adding all this value together. So, and if I actually add all this value together, and I print out rest if, so we should see that they are the same. I can see because remember, this 3 is not included, and it's like we say that name 0 plus name 1 plus name 2. And if I put 4, we're going to pick PI, right? So if I run it, so I have PI, I have P, because I did not include the third index. So remember, this part is always going to be -1. So that is one you can see in the real world. So another one again you can see is, so what happened if I just put a colon? So what do you think is going to happen? But what's going to happen here is that it's going to still print paying me. So it's as if we're slicing from 0 up until -1. So as you can see, I'm seeing paying me because this means you are starting from 0. So you starting from 0 again, it's still the same thing. As you can see, we're still having paying me. So let me just duplicate it. Um, um, Okay, so these two are actually the same thing, right? So this means we're starting from 0. We're also ending at -1. So -1 means we're starting from the last index. So on that later, as you can see, those put without putting anything is the default. It's like we calling our name, right? So that is the default. Same with this one because this is our starting position, and our starting position is always going to be included. So this is same thing as writing this, and like I said, this is like calling just the name the way it is without any slicing. So it's just a fancy way to see this one. So I don't know why someone wants to write something like this or like this when they can just call their name. But I hope you understand how it works, but they're the same thing. So similarly, I can take -1. So what do you think -1 is going to bring? So I'll bring down rest of 2. The rest of 2 is E because E is actually our last index. So -1 start from the back again. So if I go to -4, so we're going to start. So this is -1. This is P is M is -2. Space is -3. G is -4. As you can see, G is -4. And similarly, I can do 0 up until -1. Right. So what are we going to have the in M? Because remember our E is um -1, so, and the -1 is not actually included. So that is why. So that's all about string slicing. And it's very useful when you want to take a particular pattern from a string. Like for instance, if I want to extract P and I don't want to do the previous string manipulation, like maybe we have price equals to, so let's say I just want to take my 13th from this value. I could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to start from the 7th value, right, up until the 8th. And I want the 7th and the 8th value. Then I'm going to ignore the 9th. So what I can do for price is extracted. And just delete this so they can be on the same line. Equals to price of, now remember we counted this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 8. I'm going to print out 8 so to check if I'm right. So 8 is pointing to a space, meaning that I'm not still right. Let me see 7. Let me see what 7 is going to bring. So I was not counting based on index. That's what happened. So remember, we have to count based on index. So I need 6:7. Sorry, 6:8. So 6 means with 6 index. So this is 1. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1 is 6. Then 3 is 7. Then the next space, remember, this 8 is not included. So that's a space. If I run now, we have our 30. So this is, as you can see, this is a more cleaner approach for us to extract our file. But it's just that we don't know if this pattern is always going to be consistent across database or across websites. So that's why the first method is actually better, but it's slower because we need to first remove this one, then remove this one, then remove this one, then remove this one, then remove this one. Then, so as you can see, this is way cleaner than the first method I showed you. And they're all under string manipulation because as you can see, I'm still working with a string. But there are those different approaches. If we know that maybe if we know that we are always going to be extracting something like this, right? I can just take one column and this is going to be my price. So this is going to give me 13 without. So remember, we're always going to start from this. And anytime you see colon without anything, it means that take everything, start after the starting point. Remember, I showed you that we can do 0 from here. So meaning that start from 0. So now I want to make it that we can actually start from 1. So me starting from 1 means I'm starting from index 1. So this is index 0, this is index 1. So take index 1 and everything after, because I know that in my own test file, I can always extract the value, but just that the symbol, the price symbol tends to be included. So, and I'm only stripping the price symbol. That is why I can do it that way. So if you are extremely sure of what you want, and you know that what you want is actually consistent across your automation projects, then it is easier to do it this way so that you can actually extract your files. So extract your data more quickly. And you can see it is cleaner. Fine, it will not be really understandable. But also that anything after this colon, if you don't get a value, it means that take everything up until the end, starting from the starting point up until the ending, right? Now, I hope it make a little bit of sense. So that is if we're sure that we're consistent too. But if you know that you're not really consistent, then you need to do it the previous method. It doesn't hurt, right? So that's basic of string transformation that we are probably going to see during when I help you with the automation framework. You're going to see me doing stuff like that. But yeah, but and this is slicing, and if I remove it, this is indexing. So slicing and indexing goes side by side. So slicing is when you want to take a particular part of the string, while indexing is when you want to get a particular, sorry, when I mean a particular part, like just one value, that is when you use indexing. Okay, what is the index of 1? The index of 1 is, oh, in price is actually 1. Index of 2 is 3. The index of 0 is the pound symbol. So that is string. I hope, and in case you have any question, please let me know. Right. So the next part is, let's talk about arithmetic operation. Yeah, I don't know if I spelled this right correctly, but let's talk about arithmetic operation. So in Python, we actually have multiple ways of going with our arithmetic operation. For instance, we have the addition. So this is going to be the first one, addition. So I have a variable called x. So let us go back to mathematics and do x and y. So x and y. So we have x and y, two values. So I can now do addition. So I can say a next variable z. Remember, we need to store it, equals to x plus y, which is the same thing as we say 10 plus 3. Because, and if I print out z, I'm going to have 13, right? Now, this is 13. So another one is subtraction, which is z equals to. So we can actually replace the value of z by assigning the value of z again. So in case I've not done that, x minus y. So the minus is to denote subtraction. The plus is to denote addition in Python, right? Oh, sorry. I didn't print my z. So our z is 7, right? because we've assigned the value. And in case it confused you, so now in Python, we can actually, like, we assign a variable called Z. Here, we also assign a variable called Z again. Now, while replacing the original value, like I said, variable is a container. So if you in your bucket initially you put hot water, or in your flask you put hot water, later on you replace it and you put cold water, it's still a flask. His own job is just to hold the value. His own job is just to hold the water for you, be it cold, be it hot. So be it warm, be it 10 degrees, be it 12 degrees Celsius of water, it's still going to hold the water for you. And that's the job of a flask. Same thing with our variable, be it number, be it float, be it the result of the addition or result of subtraction or multiplication. Is the job is just for it to store the value so that you can reuse it later on in your code. So I hope you don't get confused that reusing the same value. And in case you are confused, we can actually change it to maybe A, right? So we can change this one to A. And if I print A, we should still have the same value. So our A is still 7. The next arithmetic operation is actually multiplication. So, A equals to B equals to, so let me say X times Y. Then if I print out B, right? So I have 30 because X is 10, Y is 3. So B is the multiplication result of X times Y, which is 10 times 3, which is 30. So that is why we have 30 over here. And similarly, we have subtraction. Let me call it C equals to X divided by Y. So now we have two division in Python now. Let me just print it. So D equals to X. Remember when I said that we can't use double forward slash as a comment? It's because of in Python, we also use it for division also. Okay. So the first subtraction actually gives us a floating point number, and the second one gives us a whole number. Even if X and Y, they are both integer, we can still get floating point number because 10 divided by 3 is 3.33333. But the integer version is, we're going to round it up and just have 3. Remember, in integer, there's nothing like floating point word. So, and let's say we add 3.5, it could have rounded it up as 4. So let's say this was 4. All right, let me change this to 4. As you can see, we have 2.5. So the real value 2.5, 10 divided by 4 initially is 2.5 if you use your calculator. However, what this one does is it converts it to whole number, and in the process of converting to whole number, it actually I've forgotten the keyword here. It actually like reduces the value and make it like to the lowest points because it is not still up to 3, despite it being 2.5. So it reduces it to, even if it's 2.9, it's still going to convert it back to 2. Like I said, let's use the birthday analogy. Even if, as long as your birthday, even if you were born on January, right, and we're in December right now, and your birthday is a month ago, you're still that your current age. You have not still changed your age because you've not still gotten to the 355 or 356th year. Sorry, 356 day. My bad. So you've not gotten to the next day. You've not gotten to the next year. That is why you are still that same age. Maybe you are 40 this year and your birthday is coming up January. and it has got to December, and you've not still entered the following year, you are still going to be 40 years, right? I hope you get my point. And that's how it works. Similar with work. So it's going to round down rather than rounding up when it comes to Python. Okay, so that is addition multiplication. So I'm going to delete all these ones now. Now the next part is going to be called.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes,
I
please go
didn't
on.
get the other, the that floor division. Is it floor division? The
Yeah,
double,
floor. Yeah,
yeah,
the
the
floor.
double. So how did you do the computation? How did you do the division? You said 10 divided by 3, and how did you do 10 divided by 3 also, right? For the floor division. The double,
This one is
the
okay.
double,
The double.
the one of double, yeah. I can't even see your. So your x is 10 there, right? And y is 4.
Yes.
Okay.
So I changed the value from 3 to 4.
Okay.
So let me see. I think this is our last part. So like you said, this is floor. But there's another one called seal. So I'm going to talk about importation later on. Right. So if I print out seal 2.9. So right now, what this operation is actually resolving to this floor, meaning that even if, as long as you've not got into, even if you are still on 0.99999, right, it's still going to count it as 2. But meanwhile, seal is going to take you to the next level as long as you are above 2.5. It's just going to round it up. So as you can see,
Okay. I think I get it now. Yeah.
you
Thank
get
you.
it. So,
Yeah, thank you.
but I'm importing for mathematics, so there's limit to what this can actually do.
Mm.
So that's why I'm importing it from math. So we're going to talk about imports going forward, but not now. So the seal is going to take it up. So you're going to get 3 for the seal. But the floor, you're going to get 2, even if we keep going to infinite 9. You're still going to get 2, right? Because just 0.0001 to make it 3, but it's still going to reduce the value. Just like how I use the bed analogy. Just because of you've not still gotten to the next year, even if the next year is just a day, the following day is your birthday, and that's going to make you 41. As long as you're still you're still in 2026, and 2027 is your birthday, you are still 40 years. That doesn't change anything about you, right? Because you've not seen the following year, you've not seen the following day, you've not seen your following month, right? And you can't count it as an increment. So just ignore this for now. So we're going to talk about this importation later on. But majority of the maths we do right now is actually going to be just limited to this. And like I said, you don't need complex mathematics. The people that really need stuff from this place is actually from data science and machine learning. Because this mathematics module actually has a lot of, like, it has to do with pi, a lot of degrees. You see science, mathematics, and the like. So okay, now the next operator, sorry, my bad, let me just roll this up. The next operator I want to talk about is the modulo operator. Now, the modulo operator, similar to this. Now, it makes use of the percentage sign. So this is me saying x, which is 10, modulo y, which is 4. So the modulo is the remainder. Now, in case we didn't do math for a long time, let me just go to 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐍𝐄𝐂𝐓. So in case we didn't do mathematics for a long time, so now this is 10, this is 4, right? So let me use my general division for you. So this is 10, this is 4. Now 4 times what is going to give us 10? So we're going to do, or the closest to 10 is actually 2, which is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. So the remainder is actually 2. So if we do 10 divided by 2 is actually 2 remainder 2. So the modulo symbol, it gives us the remainder. So if I print out A, actually give us the remainder 2. So similarly, if I change this to 3, even without running it, I will calculate the remainder. So if this is 3, 3 times 3 is 9. So I'm going to change this to 9. I'm going to write 9 over here. So if I do 10 modulus 3, we should have the remainder of 3 divided by 10, which is 1. So we should have 3 remainder 1. So if I print it now, we should have 1 as our remainder. So the modulus is just return the remainder. And this is very, very useful when we want to check the remainder of an even number. So even number is any number that can be divisible by 2 equally. So if a number can be divisible by 2, the remainder is always going to be 0. And if it can't be divisible by 2, it's going to be 1. So if I change this to 2, right, our A now is going to be, which is our remainder, is going to be 0. But if I change it to an odd number, maybe be it 9 or be it 11, we are always going to get 1. So they can ask you an interview questions. Okay, what if we want to look for a module, if we want to get a even number in a list of an item, how do we go about it? So you just talk about the modulus, and we can use the modulus which returns the operator rather than saying using a complex like if, maybe you are using if if x divided by y equals to 0, and if x divided by y equals to something else. I started looking for a way to go about it. You just use the modulo symbol, which returns the remainder. And with the remainder, with the help of the remainder, we can actually detect if a value is actually even or odd. If it's divisible by 2 completely, then we have 0. If it's not divisible by 2, we're going to have 1, no matter the number. Be it 9999999, right? If it's divisible by 2, we are going to have 1, right? And if this changes to 0, we are going to actually have 0 because 0 makes it divisible by 2. So that is, and it works for any other number, right? So please, you can play with it. And we're going to do, once we learn about if statement later on, I'm going to teach you how you can actually solve the interview question. So that is arithmetic operation in a nutshell, right? So the next one now is logical operator. So we did not really talk about Boolean say for a long time, but I'm going to talk more about Boolean now. Now we're going to do logical. So we're going to do logical operator. So a logical operator is just and, or, and not. Now I won't lie to you, like if we don't get this part, we won't be able to do if statements and loops, which is critical. And I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to spend a majority of our time trying to grasp this concept. So please bear with me. Please, this is the time to ask questions. Okay, now I talked about Boolean operators. So let me just give. So Boolean is just true or false. or bool is true, a value that can be true or false. Right. So that is a boolean operator or bool. Now, so and means the two must be true. So what do I mean by the two must be true? So if how are you an adult? Maybe or sorry, when are you eligible to drive? Let me just use driver license and marshal. And so this is when you can drive as a UK. This is adult. We're going to come back and change it later on. So let's say we are testing for a driving test in the UK as an automation tester. So the first easy condition to grab it around is that in order for you to be a driver, you should be an adult. At least you can a 17 years old child cannot drive. He can be practicing for driving, or she can be practicing for driving, but she can't drive legally. And before you can drive in the UK, you need to have passed your driving tests, right? So those two conditions must be true. It's just like Nigeria in WAEC. You can't say you fail English and pass mathematics. You go and write your WAEC again, right? So those conditions must be true, right? So that is for the AND operator. So for the AND, both must be true. Now, the next one is the OR operator. Just one must be true. So what I mean by just one? So for instance, maybe you have an optional maybe in WAEC, right? Let's say you wrote your WAEC and you have optional maybe you don't need to pass this particular course, it's not part of your course subjects. So even if you fail it, you are free to go. Or they say, oh, you're in science class, if you pass mathematics and you fail physics, you are still good to go as long as you don't fail English. So that is optional. If you pass both of them, it is good. If you pass one and you fail the other one, it is still good. So meaning that in our scenario, is adults should be true, right? Or as pass tests can be false. So even if you're an adult and you did not pass your test, you can still drive, which is not true. Sha. Don't try it, please. But that's the concept. As long as one is true, you are still free to go. So it's mean that one of them can be optional. So that's the key point. One of them can be optional. Then the next one is, so that is for the, why the not operator is a negation sign. So what I mean by used to negate, so it actually converts true to false and false to, so it actually converts true to false and false to true. So that is the negation sign of our not keyword. Okay, so this is just the basic concept now. So the next concept about logical operator is what we call um, so what is truth value? So truth value is any value that can appear to be true. So now, or rather, let me just put in this. Let me talk about the false value, then you can understand it. So false value is any statement that it's kind of false in a way. So kind of false in a way in the sense that the first one is the false. This is actually a false value. right? The next one is zero. Zero is false. The next one now is we have none. We're going to talk about the none type later on. False, zero, none, and a empty space. So these are all, these four values are false. Then anything that is not this four value, right, are actually truthy. So 100, my name, Ola, is a truthy value. Now, so we'll talk about why we need that later on. Now, something about true, like I said, so going back to the and statement. Now, if this results to, if is adult is true and as past test is false, so this result is going to be a false because true means that you passed one and you failed the other one, right? You passed mathematics and you failed English. It means you failed. There's no other option. So even if one is true, or maybe you you actually are above 18 years and you did not pass your driving test, you are not still legalized to drive in the UK, right? So that's just one way to go about it. So both condition must be correct, right? However, if we are working with and, this result is going to be true because is adult is true, but as past test is false. So even if you're an adult and you've not passed the test, you are still legalized to drive in another place. Sorry, sorry, I say and. So the result should be or. Sorry about that. So is adult and is adult is true, as past test is false. So true or false is still true because now the keyword is true or false is true. So let us give like a table map. So this is it. What they used to teach us in computer science is actually logic. Um, 0, 1. So this is 0 times 1. So this is this is AND statement. So because AND statement is like multiplication, and this is OR statement is like addition. So this is 0 plus 1 statement, or the value of yet plus 1. So we have 0, 0 now. Well, let me just make it easy for you. So the keyword is 0 times 1. um, This is A, this is B, let me use 0. This is A times B. This is A plus B. We have 0, 0, 1, 1. We have 0, 1, 0, 1. So 0 times 0. So this is, so our 0 is same thing as false, and our 1 is same thing as true. So you could say 0 times 0, which means false and false. It is still false. So we could still put right 0, right? Then 0 plus 0. So false and false or false. Remember, plus is same thing as or. So false or false, which is 0 or 0 plus 0, it is still 0. Similarly, 0 and 1, 0 times 1. So meaning that you have one false and you have one true. So even if you pass mathematics and you don't pass English, you still fail. So 0 times 1 is 0. So it still resolve as a fail. However, if you pass one and you maybe you pass one optional and you fail the other optional, or you pass the other optional and you fail optional. So 0 plus 1 mean that you can still pass even if you did not pass one, right? Then the next one is 1 and 0. So 1 times 0 is 0, meaning that you fail. So you pass mathematics this time and you failed English, so you still failed. So, and 1 plus 0, which is 1 or 0, or true or false, or sorry, true or false, mean that you pass physics and you failed chemistry. You're still going to, sorry, you're going to pass. I meant, my lord, you're going to pass. Then, lastly, you pass mathematics, you pass English, you pass your two main compulsory subjects. You passed because you didn't fail anyone. So true and true is always going to give you true. Then similarly, 1 plus 1. Let's say we're working in binary. It's actually 1. And then so we can talk about binary this time. But those know that you pass both of them. So that means you pass. So in false, in all statements, if if both of them are false, then our or is going to resolve to false. However, in our and statement, both of them must be true for it to pass. And it doesn't affect all statements. So even if you pass mathematics or you pass English, let's say that you just need to pass one of them, then you are good to go. If you fail one of them, you are still good to go. However, if you fail both of them, then you have to come back and receive your WAEC. However, when it comes to the and statement, you need your two core subjects, the maths and English. I hope it makes sense a little bit, because I know this is going to be a little bit to wrap around your head. So just know this: if it is true and it is true, we are good to go. But if one part is true and the other part is false, it is going to be false. And the not keyword. So what the not does is, so this as past tense is actually false. If I say not false, it means it is true, right? So not false is true. So the result of the result not is going to be true. So it's just like you saying that I did not fail, but you feel. So it's like you lying. Let me put that way. And you say that I did not lie. Meanwhile, you just told the lie. So it's a little bit confusing to actually wrap around your head. But that is how it works. So that is the Boolean statement. And it's a little bit, I don't know. So do we have any question, or why are you sleeping? It's already late in the night. Let me know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Are you still following, or you are or you are
Yes.
lost?
Yeah,
Yes.
go back to the recording to grab it very well.
Okay. Or maybe we should stop. This is very close to 12. I don't know if you're in Nigeria, but we can stop and we can continue tomorrow.
You mean tomorrow, Saturday?
Yes, tomorrow Saturday. Yeah.
What
I'll
time,
let you
please?
know. I'll start by 9. All right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, mine is 10. Okay.
9 in the evening, please. Not in the morning.
I know. I just wanted to be sure if I will be done with work. And I remember that 9 is 10 here. So it's fine.
Oh,
Already, sorry, for how many hours tomorrow morning?
not in the morning, in the evening, please.
Tomorrow evening.
Okay, 9 p.m.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Because I'm at work just now. But that's good. So I thought it's in the morning because I won't have slept. But anyway, that's good. Thank you.
I'll let you know anyway. I can't promise that we'll continue tomorrow. But if we can't do it tomorrow, then probably I'll try to look for a way for us to do it on Tuesday, try to do it on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I just want us to complete this Python and focus on automation throughout. Because if you don't understand this one, this statement is not going to make sense to you. Okay, so do we have any question? Okay.
Nothing for me just now.
No question. All right. Okay, man. You can end the recording anyway. So you can stop the recording.